Good morning, everyone. My name is Cde Collen. Welcome to ANC Connect. On today's episode, we are joined by Collen Malatjie, who is the ANC Youth League President. Welcome, President.
Thank you, thank you.
I think before we go into the discussion, it would be great if young people could understand who you are, your political journey, and how you find yourself here today. Kindly tell us about that.
My political journey started when I was 12, 13. I was introduced to politics by my father, who introduced me to Matome Chilwane. At that time, Matome was a secretary of the YCL in Ekurhuleni. I was first introduced to politics of the YCL before I was introduced, and a lot of people don't know that, before I was introduced to politics of COSAS. Then it was through the influence of Comrade Matome. I joined the YCL. I became active in the YCL first before I could even be a full member. Then later I was in COSAS, which in Ekurhuleni I happened to become the regional secretary of COSAS. And later on I became regional secretary for 2 terms. Then after 2 terms I became the provincial secretary of COSAS in Gauteng. Then later became the chair of COSAS in Gauteng. But when I was the chair of COSAS and secretary of COSAS in Ekurhuleni, I was also a branch. At 14 years to 15 years, I was a branch secretary of the Youth League in my branch. I lost interest in the politics of the YCL and more interested in the politics of the Youth League. Because if you know, COSAS and Youth League politics, there's a bit of similarities and how the mass mobilization and organizing and how they're structured. Now, but the people around me were not happy with my journey towards the Youth League because they felt that I must first learn a bit of politics first of the Communist Party and the YCL and align them later in the ANC Youth League. But I showed more interest in the Youth League. I became the branch secretary. I also became the branch chairperson of my branch of the Youth League. Later became the chairperson of the zone of the ANC Youth League. Then I also on the other side of COSAS, because when I was in COSAS, I was in the Youth League also. I could not wait to leave COSAS and go back to the Youth League. That's why I led COSAS and the Youth League at the same time. Then I became the chair of the province of Gauteng, which I ultimately became the president of COSAS. After presidency of COSAS, in between, towards my exit, when I went to varsity, I joined and also became an NEC member of SASCO. Then became a leader of the ANC. When I was leaving COSAS politics, I was entering also into the ANC. I became the branch secretary of the ANC in my branch. I also became the branch chairperson of the ANC in my branch. Later became the zonal secretary of the ANC in my zone. Now, the political journey was not that easy. It was an organic one in most cases because I went to go through the ranks, led to different generations. A lot of people that I call my generations today, they are old. You know, others are now mayors, others are NEC members. Those are some of the comrades I led with in the ANC Youth League. And if you can check the age difference between me and them, you can see it's a huge age difference. We're excited of part of the reasons what used to excite me is the presidency of Kenny Mutseho at that time. He was the president of COSAS. He was a young and radical young person who used to mobilize the ground forces. That's why, because of the inspiration, I later led one of the biggest marches using trains. It's now when we marched the COSAS, we never used buses. We used to use trains because we never had resources for buses. But we used to have massive marches. If you go back to old videos of Johannesburg, you'll know when COSAS comes to the CBD, the whole of Johannesburg was on standstill, will be on standstill using trains. And I think I led one of the biggest marches when I was president of COSAS in Johannesburg. I think it was over 12,000 students who closed the whole of Johannesburg. And when the police wanted to engage with me, I remember that scenario where all the students surrounded the police hippo or van. They were refusing that the police engage with me. Then they insisted that I must address them on top of a police van. I think it was one of the most scariest moments. But that's what we could see when you have mass mobilization and the students and the youth are energized. You are able to achieve anything that you want to achieve. But that journey ultimately led to me becoming the leader of the Youth League at the level of national. When the Youth League was dissolved, we're one of the youth that were brought in to try. It was a difficult moment because after the disbandment of the Youth League, to be honest, there was a crisis of the institutional memory because a lot of young people who joined post 2013, they've never really experienced the real Youth League. You know, they thought the Youth League is just for vibes and all of those things. And a lot of them lost interest. We end up attracting what we don't really need and losing what we need in the ANC Youth League. And it became problematic. Now, when we entered into the task team, there was a new generation crop of young people who were coming in, were from different backgrounds politically. It became very difficult to work around it. Then later it was reconfigured again and reconfigured until we went to conference now. In the last conference was from last year, where I was elected as a president. But before that, I was appointed as a deputy coordinator. And I was given 3 months, to deliver a conference that it was very difficult to deliver in 2 years or 3 years. But we tried our best, and we met the deadline with the collective I was leading with. And no one believed it, that we can pull a conference in 3 months. But we're fully committed and we worked very hard. Obviously, it was not a perfect situation, but we did everything in our power because we knew the importance of the Youth League coming back before these important elections. And I think all of you can see the impact of the Youth League, why it was important for it to be back before this important election. But mainly is that there's not much apart from that activism of community activism, participating in community programs, being a parliamentarian now, exiting. I'm going to be the youngest pensioner. I'm going to be the youngest pensioner because when you leave parliament, they're going to give you a pension. That way, it means the history of pensioners, I'm one of the youngest pensioners. I've retired early.
Making history.
I took early retirement. But it's because of the focus of the Youth League. Because the president of the Youth League is not a full-time responsibility. Presidents of Youth League have been in parliament, have been ministers. But because of the organization want to be, we felt that the Youth League needs its president to be on the streets, to mobilize them, to now the sacrifice we want to take. It comes with a lot of things. It comes with losing your salary security. It comes with losing your medical aid. It comes with losing your flights. You know, in parliament you can move around flights, but also with an opportunity to contribute in those corridors of power. But we said no, let's send other young people there. Youth League president must go outside and agitate on the ground and mobilize and build strong structures, working together with the collective.
President, that is a very loaded history. It gives us a sense that you understand the importance of active citizenship. What do you say to young people who are not actively participating in democratic processes? Why should they participate and join organized groupings such as the ANC Youth League in order to ensure that their interests are furthered?
I think it's irresponsible for any young person not to participate in politics because politics decide everything. They decide whether to sleep. COVID-19 is a good example. Politics decided that you must not go out of your houses because of there's COVID-19, and you could not defy that because the state put on institutions instructed by the commander-in-chief, which is the president of the country, who is a politician, on what must happen. Politics can determine, no matter how educated you are, politics can decide your future and how it must be designed. Politics can decide that tomorrow where your medical degree is useless. This is how it must be designed. I'm saying those are policy decisions. Now policy is influenced by politics. Now I think it's irresponsible for any young person not to participate in politics. It must be an interest of every youth. You know, pre-94, in the 80s, 1976 generation, 80s, all revolutions of the world have been led by young people. Let's pick South Africa. When the ANC was banned, which was mainly led by young people, the generation of the 1944 of Nelson Mandela, who brought a new energy into the African National Congress. When it was banned and silent and exiled, the ANC, there was a generation led by Steve Biko of the Black Consciousness Movement. Every time there's a vacuum, there's a youth organizing because the youth's role is to play that role. The Black Consciousness generation came in, mobilized the youth on Black Power and all of those issues. But it was diluting the ANC politics because the ANC is a charterist organization. Now, the ANC had to come back into the country to formulate other organizations to assist. Okay, this is a revolution, they're leading it, but we can no longer post the 1921 the launch of the Communist Party of South Africa, the ANC adopting the NDR and the ANC adopting the non-racial character, but also because the ANC became an internationalist organization. It could not operate in isolation. Now, the language that people must marshal to the sea, it could not make sense because of mobilizing international solidarity. The president of the ANC was all over the world, mobilizing whites, blacks, everywhere else, London, everywhere, to fight for a proper South Africa, a democratic South Africa, where there will not be you will not be sidelined based on your racial group and all those things. A South Africa where everyone can live in it and build a nation. Now, you could not go and speak about when we take power, let's move the whites to the sea. You know, it became an ANC language, even if we didn't have the revolution. But in 1970, in the 70s, 1979, the formation of COSAS, it was not by mistake. It was to come back into the country and mobilize the youth with their own structures. That's why COSAS was one of the first organizations to adopt the Freedom Charter as a political document to guide us how to move forward. And if you check in the 80s, the politics started to change. A lot of organizations were trying to come in, psycho. Those were influenced of the ANC because the ANC was saying, okay, there's a revolution there. The youth are organized, the youth want to fight the system. But the problem is that if the youth fights the system with that clear, conscious direction of where we want to take the country, we might have a situation where we don't ultimately get to where we want to get, and our revolution might be hijacked. Now, youth has been a state of emergency. 1985 is the youth. You know, you can count all events in the 80s. It was always the youth declaring, Oliver Tambo declaring that the youth must run the country ungovernable, was calling upon the youth in this January 8 statement. Because in the ANC, when we get marching orders, is a January 8 statement. Now, declaring them that they must go in the country and run the country ungovernable, and calling them the young lions. They were called upon is the youth. Now, I think post-94, because people thought we've arrived, it's democracy now, there's no need to be activism, government must just do everything, the youth will sit back and just receive. It became problematic because that generation that led that revolution, most of them, they are old, they've retired, others have, because of, you know, they've passed on, they're no longer there. It's a new crop of leaders who, it's ourselves. We're not there in the state of emergency where instead when we opened our eyes, we're in a democratic South Africa. We don't know what is it not to move around everywhere. Now they just seem to relax, there's no need for this, let's wait for the government to decide. Anyway, they've decided. But also because of the stigma and the propaganda that has been put by the media. Politics has to be associated with corruption and all of those things. Something for old people, they don't need to be there, which is a propaganda that it needs to be fixed moving forward. But just to fast forward, I think that is responsible. But also ourselves as this NEC, myself as the president of this NEC, the president has called upon us in a January 8 statement to carry elections. It's a big thing, you know, when the president calls upon the youth. I'm saying when the last January 8 statement in Mpumalanga, the president called upon this youth, which I'm leading as a president, to lead and be in charge of the elections. It's a big responsibility. It does not happen all the time. You can call Oliver Tambo called the generation of the young lions. Now, the president calling upon a generation or an organization, it's a big thing. Now, that's why we went all out. We went all out to reconscientize the youth. People don't understand why are we energized, why are we filling stadiums, why are we in halls, why? Because we want to bring back the youth to make this thing fun again, you know, so that because it's their revolution to defend the gains of freedom. Because there's not any other, look, the youth, if the youth of the ANC and the youth of the other parties are different. The ANC teaches the youth politics of the country, teaches them how to protect the constitution, brings them on a proper history of the country. The other one is mainly on liberal politics, on Pumangena politics, but mainly influenced by the West and other funders who don't believe in the programs of social change we want to bring into this country. They don't believe in the program that we want to build of restructuring the economy, our demands as the youth of economic freedom now. Now, those who are beneficiaries of the infrastructure the way it is in this country don't agree. That's why there's so many political parties. Every time the ANC becomes radical, the funders shift to form other political parties to divide and take the ANC out of power because they don't believe in the policy of triple PE, they don't believe in affirmative actions. There are political parties that believe that because people voted in 1994, we're all equal. That pre-94, a lot of minorities, mainly white males, did not get the benefit from the state. Anyway, when the ANC got into power, a lot of these white males got money of government. We found a bankrupt government of South Africa. That's, and people don't say that. The National Party, which is a DA now, left the country bankrupt. The ANC literally had to spend over 10, 15 years trying to build infrastructure. But also the problem that is caused by apartheid of high level of inequality. Majority of South Africans are poor. Level of, now, those are problems that we faced. But also we've doubled and tripled employment intake since 94 until now. Yes, the demand must happen. We need more jobs to be created and all of those things. But I felt that I must raise that issue to say the youth must be able to do their own research and see, you know, education-wise, a child from Venda will never come to UP or Wits University or UJ. Today, you can just get into a bus, come here, you get accommodation, you get NEFSAs. If you have passed your place at home, you are even given a stipend to be in school. You know, let's say more must be done. Yes, we want free universal education, but the ANC has put in temporary solutions so that those have, and a lot of middle class in South Africa, who people claim they don't vote for the ANC, are direct beneficiaries of the ANC. There's no any black person in South Africa who say the ANC has not touched them. Anyway, he will be lying. There's no one. There's no any black. And even another thing that we're not raising, white females were liberated by the ANC also, because even under apartheid they were oppressed. White women could not do anything in this country. They could not do business. They could not be in senior management. They could not do. But under the ANC government, they're also liberated to get those things. Yeah.
I think, Comrade President, you touch on an important element that as the president of the Youth League, you have the huge task of ensuring that you organize young people around a coherent historical project in society, whether they're in the ANC or not. How difficult has that been, taking into consideration the disbandment of the ANC Youth League and the ANC Youth League, and then also the ANC Youth League's responsibility to ensure that the ANC doesn't suffer from an existential crisis? So having to fulfill your twin tasks and then also ensuring that the ANC lives longer than it should. How difficult has that been for you?
It's very difficult because the ANC was an old liberation movement. It's 112, it's the oldest in Africa, if you know, in the world. It finds it difficult to accept new things, new changes. Everything must be forced in because the old might fear, hey, if you put this thing too much, you might dilute what the ANC is. And as a youth league, we always have a responsibility to energize the ANC and put new ideas. And sometimes you might find resistance in certain things. But I can see the beauty about the last conference of the ANC is that it has put in a lot of young people in the NEC of the ANC. I'm saying generations of the youth league. Now, it's not as difficult as before. When I was president of COSAS, it was difficult because the generation I was leading the ANC was the old generation of the ANC who, in most cases, not want this new ways of doing things, new ways of mobilizing, social media activations, the new dances that we're doing. They can easily be associated with opulence and you know, the behavior. But the youth of the country likes that. You know, the youth of the country likes to be entertained, likes to dance, they like to party. They, you know, they like a certain way of being addressed. You know, because it's our input. We created that youth to be that way. You know, because of the intervention of the ANC. This youth didn't have to hold AK-47s to fight and all of those things. Now, it is a bit difficult, but bringing them in, I think we've silenced other political parties that were claiming that are youth because we've been coming into the space, but that's a space we've left because nature does not allow a vacuum. Now, that vacuum we've opened for all of those years, it has opened space for other political parties to appear more youthful than the ANC. And I think we're at 40% so far as the Youth League to try to bring back the youth in the ANC. I can't say we've done extremely well, but when we came in on these elections, our focus was campaigning. We've never had time to breathe as the Youth League say, okay, what kind of a Youth League that we're building now? Now, I think after the elections, we'll have a time to bring in new crops because we need young professionals back in the Youth League to play active roles, you know, because those are the youth we need. We need youth in sports. We need the youth in the arts, popular culture. We need, those are people who must be leading branches of the Youth League. And, you know, we need people in constituencies. I've always argued this thing. That the Youth League does not need a leader who can't even mobilize their street because it's a mass-based organization, mobilize the youth. Now, a person who can mobilize the street or no one can listen to them, it can't be leader of the Youth League. Yes, can be a support of the Youth League, but the Youth League must have a constituency. Whatever the constituency of the radicals, whatever the constituency of the art, whatever the constituency of the professionals, but somebody must, whatever the constituency in churches, you must be listened to. Yeah, we must be able to send you and say, to only go to this church, and people will hear you when you speak, or hear I was speaking to a Christian.
Yeah.
When you are a traditional leader, whatever you send is going to speak traditional leaders in the youth. When you speak to them, people must hear that, you speak to, I don't master all as a president of the youth league, and I know why I master, where I don't. I know at the level of the radicals, at the level of traditional leaders, there I know I'll be able to play a role. But obviously, we need everyone to do that, because the youth league is a big structure. Now, that work must be done. A lot of our structures are expiring. And I think the discussion will be heavy, because when you rebuild structures, you must have political engagements. Even if it's a democratic process, but it's a political organization, you must be able to engage. We see you guys, you've mobilized branches, you've launched, but the quality of the youth you're bringing, can't do this. But also, we've become a black organization. And that's a problem. The discussion must have, and it's a problem for the ANC also. The Youth League is no longer appearing to be a non-racial organization. When we're in meetings, it's all black people in one room, but we're saying we're one nation, and that will affect the ANC. It will affect the ANC, because the youth league must prepare leaders for the ANC. That means the ANC will just become any other black organization. When the ANC has no vision of becoming a black organization, it wants to be a non-racial organization. Now we need to start recruiting all the youth, who, whether you're white, Indian, you must come into structures of the youth league to play a role, so that nation building we're speaking about, is a reflection of the ANC must reflect South Africa. Because the moment the ANC doesn't reflect South Africa, it's no longer a political organization for South Africans.
President, we're sitting here today, and young people are already making their ways to the polls to vote in the national and provincial elections. And you, as the Youth League, have a responsibility of mobilizing between 3 to 4 million young people to vote for the African National Congress. What is your message to those young people as they make their way to the polls, especially those who are actually still undecided on this particular day? What is the Youth League and what is the ANC offering to those young people of this country?
To the youth of the country, it is very important that we vote for a political organization with a track record of resolving socio-economic challenges of the country. The ANC has put water where there was no water. It has built schools where there were no schools. It has taken kids from very poor backgrounds to institutions of high learnings. It has opened for free education from grade 1 up until where you can study from whatever background you are from. It has opened space for young professionals to enter and compete in the spaces where they should be competing. Now, it is a very important vote, because the ANC needs to really do more, because without the vote, the ANC and the gains of freedom will be reversed, because the ANC is not a party that says, I will still do this. The ANC says, I've done this, and these are the plans moving forward. Now, for us to protect this democracy and build the country that we want to build, and to assist to restructure the economy to reflect the demographics of the country, we need the ANC to be back in power, so that it can continue the good work that has been doing over the years.
Thank you, President. I think without a doubt, the ANC Youth League is back. We do wish you well in the momentous task that you have of organizing young people behind the banner of the ANC, and of course, organizing them behind a coherent historical project. Thank you so much for joining today's episode of ANC Connect. Do join us in the next episode. See you next time.